within business when they're having challenges. Just try to make a little bit of progress every single day because it's going to add up in the end.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
So what is the good, the bad, and the ugly of trading, and why you
Yeah.
decide to become a trader in the first place?
Well, the reason I decided to become a trader, I think number one is you have no boss, which is great. You're in full control, but there's the issues that come with that. We'll talk about that in a second. But you also have, with trading, no ceiling. You can make essentially a limited amount of money. You can also lose a limited amount of money. But the reason I love it is it's such a scalable business. And, when I got into the business, most people will lose when they start trading. And I always say that no one's born a good trader. You have to learn these concepts. A lot of them are counterintuitive to human nature and how we actually think. What I mean by that is a lot of people that fail in trading make emotional decisions, and that's how they base their trades. And typically those are wrong. We need to be basing our decisions based off of logic, what we're actually seeing on the chart or the fundamentals, etc. And if we can do that, then we're going to start to actually develop some form of an edge. Now, the good of trading, obviously, you can do it anywhere. You can scale it to infinity. Is that easy? No, it's very difficult to do. And that kind of leads to the ugly of it. It's probably the hardest thing, one of the hardest things you can do to make money, because it really shows you who you are and what you're made of. All your flaws will be uncovered when you're a trader. If you're not disciplined, you're the one in control. You will lose money if you're not disciplined and you let something go over a max loss amount. I think it can be very frustrating at times if you don't have a system in place. And that's, primarily what we do with traders is we work with them to put a system in place, understand the probabilities, understand the risk reward, and, set them up correctly so that whenever they're operating within the market, everything's controlled. And, of course, these are just our opinions and kind of what we use in our system, and we educate people in that regard. But I think that's the most important part is you need to have some form of framework to work within the market, because there's a million things that you can do, and it can be extremely overwhelming if you aren't controlling your behaviors, your discipline, etc., on a day-to-day basis.
So, yeah, and trading, there are a lot of strategy. So, can you share in which one you specialize?
Strategies. Okay, so I said it before the
What do you mean
beginning.
by technical trader? It sounds
Yeah, so-
difficult. I see a lot
so
of screens behind you.
Yeah, so technical trading is basically trading that is based off of patterns that form on the chart from a price action standpoint. So when over the course of time, price will move and it will cause certain patterns to occur. So what I'm doing is I'm analyzing those patterns that are occurring, looking at the volume, as well as I'm mixing in fundamentals like news, looking at filings, understanding what's going on in the structure of the actual company, if there's certain deals that are going on. I'm using all of that information to make decisions whether to buy or sell, essentially, or hold. And the reason I really like technical trading is it's fairly black and white. There's either, something's breaking out or it isn't. There's either volume or there isn't. So you can get a pretty decent idea of what's occurring at that given point in time and what to do. I think where a lot of people fall into a trap is they start to rely on their opinion to make and take positions, whereas I try to just be reactive to what I'm seeing from a technical standpoint, so to speak.
And where do you learn? Who taught you?
So I mainly was self-taught. I came out of
Oh, wow.
university. I came out of university.
Where are you based?
I'm based in Vancouver, Canada.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I went to university here. I travel all over, and I do have some partners in the States, etc. But I started by myself. I built a system. I was basically just back testing and then just recording probabilities. So, you learn statistics in finance and university. And I was using what I learned there to figure out basically what performed and what didn't. And then over the course of time, you start to get a lot of different data points and you start to eliminate the bad, focus on the good. And that's what actually becomes scalable. And that's the process I take with every single person that I would have in the mentorship program, et cetera, because it is replicable and it does work. Now, with that being said, there's been a lot of different people along the road where you learn from. For instance, one of my partners, we call him South Beach, his name's Steve. He ran some of the biggest hedge funds in the world. He was the biggest option premium short seller in the world for about 20 years. Worked with big names like Stevie Cohen, etc. And I learned a lot from him in regards to the macro side of the business, which is the macro environment is essentially how geopolitical, how the fundamentals or what's going on in the world events, etc. For instance, like COVID, are affecting certain businesses, and it seems obvious after let's say the consumer is not doing as well because we're looking at credit card debt at its all-time high, so the consumer's probably not doing as well. Then we can understand that, okay, then maybe the retailer names are going to be producing worse quarters because we would expect that if the consumer's not doing well, they're probably buying less products overall. Now, that's not always the case. It could be, maybe it's the consumer products that are in person over the stores, but Amazon's continuing to scale up just because of the ease of access. People prefer to buy there. But there's all these different little nuances that I would learn from him. My other partner, Beth, she's an options specialist. And both my partners, they have about like 45 years of experience, which is a lot of tenure. She kind of taught me the ropes on the option side, and then I took the basics that she taught me and I built my own strategy and system more so on the technical and momentum based side of things. And then there's other individuals that I've learned more on the institutional side, the background, how private placements are done, financing's done, those types of deals, etc. So I mean, there's a lot of different individuals along the way, but that would probably be the main two.
And then the next question I would like to ask you is about the returns, okay? Because what returns do you think that they are realistic when we doing trading in terms, I don't know, of options or in terms of investing in the market, and what returns are sometimes unrealistic, so our audience can have an idea if they learn the strategy, how much can they make in the different vehicles? Can you explain a little bit more about this?
Sure. I mean,
Normal return in options and normal return in the stock market.
Well, it depends. The last couple of years have been pretty interesting. The S&P has returned, I think, well over 20% in the last year. For instance, like the gold market this year has been absolutely ripping. I think the standard 10-year return on the S&P is around 7 or 8%. Sometimes, I think maybe a little bit higher now just because of the last 2 years. But if you're investing in the market, the standard return is typically harder to beat. Most money managers have a hard time beating that. And most day traders fail because they don't put in, the right practices as in regards to risk control and kind of everything that we touched upon. So, it's hard to speak on what the standard return is besides the, general market. I think individuals that get an edge, and they apply it with consistency and discipline, they can have exceptional returns. For myself, I'm up over 100% for the year in my main account. I have a smaller account that's, I think, above 270%, in the last 8 months. So it depends on the year. It depends on what you're trading. I think, it really depends on the individual and kind of your strategy as well. It's hard to say what's the average return besides talking about the S&P, because if we're talking about an individual, it's really individual focused. What can someone expect? Someone can expect if they apply the right strategies, they do the right stuff. For instance, if they work with us and they apply the consistency, they apply the system, they're disciplined, I think that they can see exceptional returns, in my opinion, but it's difficult to apply all these things consistently without accountability and without really putting that effort in. So to kind of talk about what can people expect, it really depends on the person. It can tell you this, there's a direct correlation with the amount of effort you put into something with what your return's going to be. But that's not to discount how important discipline and risk control is in this business. It doesn't necessarily answer your question, but it's a very hard question to answer, almost impossible, because without
depends on so many factors.
Who the person is, it's really difficult. I can say what I've done this year. I can say what some of my members or mentorship students have done. I can tell you that, but
can you share a little bit more of that?
Sure. So
the result that your members have achieved.
I'll give you two examples. They're two very different examples. Now, one, her name's Elena, and I call her my star student. She's done tremendously well. But she was by no means not a profitable trader. She was a profitable trader before she came to me. She came to me about 2 years ago, and I believe she was making somewhere in the realm of 30 to 40K a month on average, which is a nice amount of money. And what we were able to do over the course of 2 years is scale her up. And she's made about 4.2 million in the last 2 years, applying the system and aggressively scaling. Now, and I've done interviews with her. We have all of the data to prove this, etc. And that goes to show you what's possible if you apply the system with discipline. Of course, that's not guaranteed. Not everyone's going to be able to achieve that, but she, and the reason she was extremely disciplined and aggressive in terms of her scaling. I'll give you another example. So I have an individual named Mateo, mentorship student as well. I met him last summer, actually. He came down and wanted to meet me, young guy, probably, in his early 20s. Really nervous, wasn't really sure where to start. He needed a little bit more time to onboard. So I gave him access to all the educational stuff, let him use the system. I gave him my settings for everything. And he started with a 5K account. And since he started, I believe he started trading about 3 months ago, he's not quadrupled, he's almost times 5 the account. So about 450% return on his account within 3 months with a 5K account, which is a smaller account, of course. But he was able to achieve this by, applying the system, being very disciplined, etc. And I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him. I think he's going to grow fairly quickly, be able to scale up more. So, it depends on, again, the individual, but these are some of the I guess kind of the two examples I like to touch upon.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So can you tell us what has been your biggest challenge in business and how you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, I think and just to kind of speak to some of the other businesses, I do a lot of different things. Obviously I'm a trader. I that's like its own thing in general. And then I have Spartan Training, which is the educational group where we have, our community, we do the mentorships, etc. Aside from that, I built an algorithmic trading business with 4 other partners. I've taken control of that business, and we're going to be looking to raise some capital, take it public, and that's going to be kind of a new, different avenue of getting into the deal side of the market. I've done a lot of different things in, venture capital, throwing money into those types of investments as well. And I've started multiple businesses that have all done very well, which is probably, one of the biggest, things to get any business to getting to that point is kind of those 5 steps that we covered. But really, I think the last 2 where I talked about, reinvesting into the company so that they can scale and then diversify into other, gaps within the market. That's how you're going to survive. Now, one of the biggest challenges I think would be when your business gets stagnant and you feel like you're just doing everything, but you can't grow. Most people give up. And I think, especially in trading, they lose enough money where they give up. I don't think I have that bone in my body where I'm willing to give up on anything. I'll continue to push forward until I succeed. You have to have that winning mindset where you think and you can do it. There's going to be times where you're going to feel like a failure. You're going to feel like you can't get over that hump. But if you just make a little bit of progress every single day, and I love to live by the Kaizen philosophy or the Kaizen approach, which is small incremental changes over a course of time create a massive change. Over the day to day, it may look like we're kind of level, but over the course of a year, these little, let's say you're just going up a millimeter, over the course of a year, it's going to look like a big gap from where you started to where you are. So the Kaizen approach is something that I think everyone should apply, especially, within, business when they're having challenges. Just try to make a little bit of progress every single day because it's going to add up in the end.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.